supposed to be like a rom-com. Well, people really hated that, but I like reread that like no other. What more could I ask for, honestly? There, everyone. Welcome back to another video. My name is Gabrielle, and today I thought I would do a very casual January TBR with you. December of 2022 was not too crazy on reading for me. Obviously the last 2 weeks got very busy with all the holiday and celebration with family, and I even made more plans than I originally anticipated, as you know, everyone in my family was like, oh, I have off, let's hang out tomorrow, let's hang out again, you know, 2 days from now. So it was a lot of fun, but I definitely didn't get to do as much reading as I had anticipated. But I thought I would share with you, you know, I want to start out the year strong. Last year I think my goal was 50 books, but that was partially because I really got back into reading for the second time in summer. So I only had kind of like 6 months. So if I thought 50 made sense, but I think I can do 100, maybe more this year. So I'm setting my goal as 100 books to read in 2023. So we're starting off with big goals for January. Already made a trip to my library here because I moved a few months ago, and ever since then I have only been doing ebooks because I really like using my Kindle. And sometimes for some reason I find that I'll read on my Kindle over physical books, which is part of the reason why I don't buy a lot of physical books, in addition to just the money being the #1 reason. But I finally got a library card for my library that's very close to me, and so I took a little trip over there and I got a few. So those will be added to today's list. So in total, right now I have 9 books that I'm going to be ambitious about reading. A lot of the time I'm a big mood reader, so if something strikes my fancy, I will read that next. So there's definitely room for that this month. But I have 9 that I have a goal of reading, and a 10th, which is more of a series. So we'll see if I get to that. First and foremost, I'm really excited to finally read Gideon the Ninth. I mentioned the third or fourth book in the Gideon the Ninth series in my exciting fantasy romance releases in 2023 video. I've heard such great hype around this first book, Gideon the Ninth, so I am anticipating the whole series to be good, hence why I'm excited for the 4th. But I finally am up on my hold for my library to get the book in January. I could get it now, but I already have something in progress now, so I'll let you know my thoughts. The next book is an independently published book. On my Instagram For You page, I came across the author Sophie Lark and her books, and I saw her promoting her most recently published book, Anastasia, and so I thought I might check that out this month. If you're not as familiar with the Anastasia story, she was a real person born, I believe, in 1901. She was assassinated alongside her family in 1918 when she was 17 years old. She was the youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II, and it was part of a revolution in Russia at the time, so her whole family was assassinated, like I mentioned. And her story, out of all the members of her family, has sort of carried on through history because her death was it was a big like historical mystery. After it was revealed that all the family was assassinated, her body wasn't yet found, I believe. At the time, some women came out and revealed, you know, a few years later, I've been in hiding, I'm the real Anastasia, it's me, and none of them were proven to be telling the truth. So that was kind of big mystery, if I'm remembering correctly, and this story was told in a Disney cartoon. I remember my sister really liking this, but I don't remember much of the movie. So the note from Sophie Lark on this book's description says, I think what captivates us about Anastasia is our dream of what could have been. Anastasia's death was so tragic, I wanted to give her another life. It's not another retelling, it's set in 1919 in a world similar to ours, but with magic. So I think it could be really interesting. I might check it out. The next one is exciting. So I'm signed up on NetGalley, and so I'll submit requests for advanced reader copy or ARCs of certain books that interest me. And I requested to receive one for the book Gwen and Art Are Not in Love, and thankfully I was accepted to receive one. So this is releasing later this year, 2023, and it seems to be a retelling of King Arthur and Guinevere, so I'm excited to see that. However, I believe there's a twist on things. So as the title says, they are not in love, and so it's, you know, touted as Heartstopper meets A Knight's Tale. And I haven't read either of those, but I've heard good things. And the cover was really cute, and I'm really interested, like I've previously mentioned, in King Arthur retellings. After long ago in middle school reading Avalon High, I think by Meg Cabot. So I am interested in seeing if this is really good. It's supposed to be like a rom-com. So I'm a part of a book club, you know, in person in real life. And the book that we've chosen for this month is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Good ratings, and none of us have read it yet. And I know it's the start of a trilogy, I believe, so hopefully we like it. All the books that we've read in our book club so far, we have not quite enjoyed. We did get 1 3-star there, so it was all right, but for the most part, we haven't enjoyed it. So I'm hoping maybe this will be the first one that we all actually like. Fingers crossed. Plus, I find that I tend to read a lot of female authors, so it might be nice to switch it up. We'll see how John does. It's a Norse-inspired world. It says it's an epic fantasy, and so I believe in the story, like the gods have destroyed the world, and now there's a rise of a new world. It says, now, as whispers of war echo across the mountains and fjords, fate follows in the footsteps of 3 people, a huntress on a dangerous quest, a noblewoman who has rejected privilege in pursuit of battle fame, and a thrall who seeks vengeance among the famed mercenaries known as the Bloodsworn. All 3 will shape the fate of the world as it once more falls under the shadow of the gods. So we'll see. I think that might be really interesting. I love a story with a good plot, so I think this might be it. I'm very excited about the next one, which is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. It was published in early 2022, so it's relatively new, and it's a really interesting description. I'm like very excited about this. I mean, one, the cover is absolutely gorgeous, like there's no denying, but the story sounds so interesting. So it follows the main character, Mina, and her brother has, you know, is in love with this girl in their village. And their village and like the surrounding areas have been ravaged by storms, and they believe that the sea god has like cursed them because he once guarded, you know, their land and made sure it was safe. So in order to try to appease the sea god, once a year her village sacrifices a woman. So the woman that her brother is in love with is up next to be sacrificed and tossed, you know, into the water. So when the time comes, the brother's love goes out to go. He kind of starts to follow her. So in order to save them both, Mina sacrifices herself into the sea. So she's kind of like transported to this new world, and she tries to find the sea god and like save their village. So it sounds really interesting. I do predict this one. I predict this one will be a 4-star read for me, so we'll see if that comes true. Alrighty, so the next book is one that I got in person from my library, and it's Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I recently read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab and loved it. And I've heard her state that all her books are written for like different audiences. So not everyone who likes one of her books will like the others, which is really intriguing to me because I know some of my other, you know, loved authors, of course, like Sarah J. Maas, she writes a lot of similar things, as well as a lot of the other fantasy female authors that have been popular in recent years. So I'm really interested to see how this one goes. But essentially it's about a girl, Olivia, who grows up at this school, and then she gets an invitation to go to Gallant, which I believe is like a house or like a manor. And so she moves there, and the description is a little confusing to me, but it seems like, you know, all these shenanigans and things pop up where she's learning more about her family history and about her mother and like who she really is, and has to discover that. So I am intrigued about this one, though I know less about it, so I'm not quite sure how this one will go. The next book I'm excited to read is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nan, I believe is how you say it. And this is an interesting one. So I saw one of the books in the series, and then I was like, wait, this seems like, from the reviews that were on the back, it seemed like it wasn't the first. So I did a quick little search and discovered that it was the second one in the series. So I looked for Girls of Paper and Fire, and thankfully my library also had this one. So I'll read this one before jumping on to the rest of the series. Main character, it's either Lee or Lei. It's spelled L-E-I, so I'm going to say Lei, but it follows Lei, and so normally the king chooses 8 consorts called Paper Girls, and she is joining as one this year as the 9th, but she's made of fire. This is what the description says, though I'm not exactly sure what that means. Essentially, Lei grows up in a remote village, and so once she moves to this castle, you know, all this drama happens and she happens to fall in love. Thankfully, the description doesn't say who she falls in love with, but you know, if it's the king, I'm sure there's going to be drama with that. And if it's somebody else that's not the king, obviously that is not good. The next one, similarly, I saw the second book in the series, thought it was not the first, so I looked up and found the first one, which is The Grimrose Girls. The first, I didn't actually read the description of this book, so let me read it with you now, but I saw this one line and I was like, oh, I'm reading this. Because I found going in person to the library, it just reminded me of how, you know, life and reading used to be when I was a kid. Like, I would just go in, I would look at what was interesting, I would read the descriptions in the book, and then choose 7 or so to take with me each week and see how that went. But I wasn't like looking, there was nowhere for me to look at other people's reviews of books. I just liked what I liked. And so now it's funny because I'll look at reviews of books I loved as a kid and I'm like, oh, people really hated that, but I like reread that like no other. So I try to infuse a bit more of that now, because I find that obviously there's a tendency to avoid books that might have a bad rating, but really, like, it's so subjective. You might absolutely love something. But I'm telling you, this line, it did it for me. It says, 4 friends, 1 murder, and a dark fate that may leave them all doomed. Plus the fact of it being like a group of girls, and I think they're in a school, yeah, elite school, Grimrose Academy, and it looks like maybe there'll be some French influence with how things are spelled. So, like, what more could I ask for, honestly? It seems like there's a group of girls, they get a new roommate, I think she turns out dead, and then, you know, having to discover what truly happened. And the last one that's on my to-be-read list is The Luminaries by Susan Dennard. She's another author that's been pretty popular in the last few years because I do recognize her name, though I don't think I've actually read anything by her yet. So this will be the first time. And I will say I'm not quite sure about it because it says contemporary fantasy, and anything with contemporary, I'm already cautious. I do love a good high fantasy. Like, this book follows Winnie Wednesday, who's kind of been shunned from society because her father was revealed as a witch. Not just a witch, a traitor as well. So she lives in Hemlock Falls, yes. And she is going to take on these deadly luminary hunter trials. I love a good book that has some trials for the main character to complete, so I hope these are good ones, hope they're creative. And of course, it seems like there's maybe a bad boy in there that she has to train with. So fingers crossed it's good. It is a YA novel though, so we'll see. It might be a little light. From the cover, it seems like it'll have more of like a spooky kind of vibe to it. I don't know if I'm making sense anymore. It may be a bit ambitious, but we will see how it goes. Hopefully I'm able to get through these. And I did have a comment on a recent video of someone asking if I would share sort of like a recap from the TBR I set at the beginning of the month. So I think for this month, I will go ahead and try to do a, you know, end of month review where I sit down and probably do like a longer form chit chat about all the books and what I thought about them. So I'll plan to do that for January. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you're planning to read, or if you've read any of these, let me know. Maybe give me any necessary warnings. Feel free to like this video, subscribe if you're so inclined. Otherwise, I will see you in another video very, very soon.